I want to start today with with a nickname. It's a nickname I honestly did not expect to see in a serious intelligence report on modern geopolitics.
Okay.
We are talking about the current leader of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré,
Hmm.
and his supporters, specifically the young people in his country and across West Africa, have started calling him a young Jesus.
It is certainly a headline grabber. It definitely stops the scroll.
Right. And just to be totally clear right off the bat, we are not diving into a religious podcast here. This is not about theology.
No, absolutely not. In this specific local context, being called a young Jesus isn't about, divinity or miracles in the biblical sense.
It's political.
It's totally political. It's about sacrifice. It captures this feeling that Traoré is a figure of moral rectitude, an ascetic who sleeps on a cot and eats with the soldiers. It paints him as someone willing to suffer or even die to save his people from what they view as the clutches of powerful, predatory empires.
So it's a reflection of this deep, desperate hunger for a savior.
A hunger, yes,
Yeah.
in a region that is frankly exhausted by crisis.
And that hunger is the engine driving this entire story. That is our mission for this deep dive. We have a massive stack of analysis here on Traoré. We're looking at a 37-year-old artillery officer, extremely young for a head of state, who is attempting to completely rewrite the rules of African governance.
He really is.
He is sending shockwaves through Western capitals, he's high-fiving Moscow, and he's taking this massive gamble between radical sovereignty and, well, authoritarianism.
It is a very high-stakes game, and to understand Traoré, you really have to understand the ghost that is standing right behind him.
Okay, let's go there.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the photos of Traoré, he doesn't look like your typical suit-and-tie politician at the UN. He's always in military fatigues, wearing that red beret, looking very serious.
Exactly. And that visual is so intentional. It's a costume, but it's a costume with a deep history. You cannot talk about Ibrahim Traoré without talking about Thomas Sankara.
The legendary leader from the 80s, the Che Guevara of Africa. Yeah.
The very same. Sankara ruled Burkina Faso from 1983 to 1987. He was iconic. He renamed the country from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, which literally translates to land of upright people.
Incredible.
It was all about food self-sufficiency, women's rights, environmental protection. I mean, he planted millions of trees to stop desertification way before climate change was a mainstream topic.
And crucially for our story today, he famously rejected foreign aid.
He did. He famously said, "He who feeds you controls you." He refused the trappings of neocolonialism. He sold off the government's fleet of Mercedes-Benzes and made all his ministers drive the cheapest car available in the country.
The Renault 5, right. I love that detail.
The Renault 5. Imagine a cabinet minister squeezing into a tiny hatchback. It sent a message. We are not here to loot, we are here to serve. But as you know, it didn't end well.
He was assassinated.
He was. In 1987, at just 37 years old, and notice, that is the exact same age Traoré is now, Sankara was killed in a coup led by his best friend and second-in-command, Blaise Compaoré.
Et tu, Grute. A classic betrayal.
Precisely. And it's widely believed, and pretty well documented, that Compaoré had French support, or at least acquiescence, for that coup because Sankara was becoming too troublesome.
For the old colonial order.
Exactly. After Sankara died, Compaoré took over, ruled for 27 years, and the country just slid back into dependency and poverty. So for the last 35 years, there has been this gaping wound in the national psyche, a feeling of a future that was stolen.
So when Traoré shows up, wearing the exact same uniform, speaking the same anti-imperialist language.
It's a signal, a huge one. He is presenting himself as the spiritual successor, the resurrection. He doesn't wear medals. He dresses simply. He speaks directly to the people in the villages, bypassing the urban elites.
And I saw reports that you can see murals in the capital now.
Oh, yeah. If you walk around Ouagadougou today, you will see murals depicting Traoré right alongside Sankara. They are fist-bumping in paintings. He is tapping into a very, very powerful nostalgia.
But let's be real about how he actually got the job. I mean, he wasn't voted in during a nice Sunday election.
No. Not at all. He took power on September 30, 2022. And you need to keep in mind, this was the second coup in Burkina Faso that year.
2 coups in 1 year. That is incredibly unstable.
Highly unstable. Traoré toppled Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. Now, Damiba had taken power only 8 months earlier, promising one thing: security.
And looking at the reports from that time, I assumed he didn't deliver.
Not even close. The security situation in Burkina Faso is terrifying. We're not just talking about crime, we're talking about an existential threat. You have insurgencies linked to al-Qaeda and the Islamic State.
So under Damiba,
Under Damiba, these groups just tighten their grip.
what does that actually look like on the ground for people?
It looks like blockades. Terrorist groups were surrounding towns, cutting off food and medicine to literally starve out the population. Villages were overrun, thousands of people were killed, and roughly 2 million people were displaced.
2 million. That is just a staggering number.
It's about 10% of the population. Just imagine 10% of the U.S. population suddenly homeless because of war.
Unthinkable.
So when Traoré and his fellow officers, specifically the Cobra Special Forces Unit, launched their putsch, they didn't frame it as a power grab. They framed it as a necessary correction.
A correction.
Yes. The argument was pretty simple. Damiba failed. He was corrupt, he was drifting into personal rule, and he was way too cozy with the French while the country was collapsing. Traoré pitched his takeover as a mission to restore security and reclaim control from a rigged world order.
And that rigged world order comment brings us to the big geopolitical pivot. Because usually when a country in West Africa gets into deep trouble, the traditional move is to pick up the red phone and call Paris or Washington.
Traditionally, yes, you rely on the former colonial power for intelligence, air support, funding. But Traoré's first major move was to say, we are done with that. Done. He signaled immediately that Burkina Faso would no longer automatically align with France or the United States. He used very specific language. He said Burkina Faso would no longer be a vassal state.
Wow, that is fighting words.
It is. And he backed it up with action. He kicked out the French ambassador. He expelled the French special forces stationed in the country. He banned French media outlets like RFI and France 24. It was a total and very public divorce.
And like a lot of messy divorces, he started dating the rival immediately. We saw a dramatic pivot toward Russia.
Oh, it's a very public new relationship. We are talking about an estimated 2,000 Russian security personnel invited into the country. Originally, the talk was all about the Wagner Group, but now it's being formalized as the Africa Corps under the Russian Ministry of Defense.
And what does that partnership cover?
Everything. Military training, arms supplies, and crucially, regime protection.
And there was that moment at the summit in St. Petersburg. I remember seeing clips of this all over social media. It looked intense.
July 2023, the Russia-Africa Summit. This was Traoré's coming out party on the global stage. He stood there in front of Vladimir Putin and other African heads of state, many of whom have been in power for decades. And he delivered this fiery speech. He actually scolded the other African leaders.
She scolded them in public.
He did. He told them to stop being puppets who dance whenever imperialists pull the strings. He asked why Africa, with all its resources, is still the poorest continent.
And the internet just went wild.
Completely wild. The video clips were set to dramatic, revolutionary music shared across TikTok, WhatsApp, Telegram. For young Africans who feel disillusioned with the West, who feel that the current system isn't working for them, that speech was electrifying. It was viral dignity.
But I imagine the reaction in, say, Paris was a little less enthusiastic.
To put it mildly, French President Emmanuel Macron called the partnership with Russia a dangerous illusion. The Western analysis, and it is a valid concern, is that Traoré is just trading one dependency for another.
Right. You get rid of France, but now you're beholden to Moscow.
Exactly. They warn that bringing in Russia risks deepening militarization and weakening institutions that are already fragile. Basically, you're swapping the tricolor for the Russian flag, but you're still dependent.
So on one hand, you have the West saying, you're making a huge mistake, and on the other, you have Traoré saying, at least this is my mistake to make.
That's it. For Traoré supporters, the pivot to Moscow is less about loving Russia and more about the act of defiance itself. It's about proving they can say no to the former colonial master. Russia is seen as a transactional partner. They sell guns, they don't lecture on human rights. France is seen as the paternalistic overseer.
Okay, so he's got the revolutionary rhetoric and he's got the new security friends. But you can't eat rhetoric. How is he handling the economy? Because Burkina Faso has resources, right? Gold.
This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where Traoré is trying to move from agitator to state builder. And yes, Burkina Faso is a major gold producer. Gold is the lifeblood of the economy.
So what's the plan there?
He has made a central pledge. The country's mineral wealth must serve the population, not just the elite or foreign shareholders.
So what does that look like in policy? Is he just taxing them more?
It goes much deeper than taxes. They are moving towards state control. They've created a new state mining enterprise to give the government direct control over strategic projects. But here is the kicker. They are requiring foreign mining companies to cede a much larger percentage of their shares to local stakeholders.
And I read something about the London Stock Exchange. That seemed major.
It was huge. They have effectively nationalized two gold mines that were previously listed on the London Stock Exchange. They are taking these assets off the international market and bringing them in-house.
Wow, that is a bold, bold move.
It is. And perhaps the most strategic move of all is the establishment of a national gold refinery.
Okay, why is the refinery so important? I feel like that detail gets lost in the headlines, but it sounds crucial.
It's absolutely crucial because of the value chain. You see, usually African nations export raw ore. It's basically dirt with gold in it. They sell it cheap. The real value is added when you refine it into bullion, into those pure gold bars.
I see.
By building a refinery, Burkina Faso keeps that value add inside the country. It creates jobs, technical expertise, and allows the state to hold physical gold reserves.
So they aren't just shipping out the dirt anymore.
Correct. Now, if you are an admirer of Traoré, you see this as finally rewiring a deeply unequal economic model. You are finally getting a fair slice of the pie.
And if you are an international investor,
You are terrified. Critics argue this represents resource nationalism that will scare away investment. I mean, mining is expensive and risky. If the government can just seize the mine once you find the gold, why would you invest? They also worry it concentrates way too much cash and power in the hands of the military junta.
which brings us to the elephant in the room. We're calling him a young Jesus, and he's talking about liberation, but at the end of the day, he's a military dictator. He suspended the Constitution.
This is the democracy dilemma. You cannot ignore the reality of how he rules. Human rights organizations are ringing the alarm bells loud and clear. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, they've documented very serious issues.
What kind of issues?
They accuse the government of muzzling dissent, harassing journalists, suspending political parties.
I heard about this conscription as punishment tactic.
Yes, that's a specific and very disturbing allegation. That if you are a journalist or a union leader who criticizes the junta, you might suddenly receive draft orders to go fight on the front lines against the jihadists. It's weaponizing civic duty to silence critics.
That is chilling.
It is. And perhaps most disturbingly, there are accusations that in the rush to fight terrorists, the security forces and these new volunteer militias are acting with impunity, committing abuses against civilians who are just accused of helping the enemy.
So he's fighting the bad guys, but his guys are doing bad things too.
That is the accusation. The government's response is usually that these Western NGOs care more about procedure than they care about the daily terror villagers face. They argue they are in an existential war, and war is ugly.
But here's what I don't get. If he is cracking down on rights, why does he seem so popular? We see the crowds cheering him. Is that all fake?
No, it appears to be genuine. And this is maybe the most fascinating part of the data. There was a 2024 Afrobarometer survey, a very respected pollster in Africa.
Okay.
It found that while support for democracy as an abstract concept is eroding in Burkina Faso, satisfaction with the leadership is linked to tangible results.
Explain that. What does that mean?
Well, for many people, democracy has come to mean elections without progress. You go to vote, you get a sticker, but 5 years later, you still don't have security, you still don't have food.
So the ritual is there, but the results aren't.
Exactly. So many citizens are now saying they prefer the promise of order, dignity, and actual improvement in living conditions over the formal ritual of voting.
It's what political scientists call performance legitimacy. Now,
Yeah.
I don't care how you got the job. I just care if you can do the job.
That's it exactly. And Traoré offers something democracy wasn't providing. Pride. Dignity. That word dignity is so key here. Even if life is hard, feeling like your leader is standing up for you against the world matters.
And he is not just standing up alone. There is a new regional club forming.
The Alliance of Sahel States. This happened in January 2024. It was a massive diplomatic rupture. Burkina Faso, along with Mali and Niger, who are also led by military juntas, withdrew from ECOWAS.
ECOWAS being the Economic Community of West African States. The big regional bloc.
The main bloc, think of it like the EU of West Africa. Leaving ECOWAS is like Brexit on steroids. It's a huge deal.
And they formed their own thing.
Their own alliance. They removed tariffs on trade between the three of them and imposed a levy on goods coming from outside.
So they are building their own little economic fortress.
They are trying to create a rival pole of sovereignty in West Africa. They are even talking about creating a new common currency to replace the CFA franc, which they view as a colonial relic.
That would be a monumental shift in the financial architecture of the entire region.
It would, but it's incredibly risky. You have to remember, all three of these countries are landlocked. If they alienate their neighbors like Ivory Coast or Ghana, who have the ports, they could strangle their own economies.
So it's a huge gamble.
A huge one. And it has rattled foreign investors and aid agencies. They don't know who to call anymore.
So let's zoom out. We have a young, charismatic leader. He's channeling a dead hero. He's kicked out the French, brought in the Russians, seized the gold mines, and quit the regional club. It feels so precarious.
Precarious is the perfect word. This is the great uncertainty. Traoré has revived the language of radical sovereignty. He has made people feel proud again. But the risks are immense. He is dealing with a lethal insurgency that hasn't actually gone away, a fragile economy undergoing shock therapy, and he's caught in the middle of a great power rivalry between Russia and the West.
And history isn't exactly on his side, is it?
No, history looms large. Sankara was assassinated. Patrice Lumumba in Congo was assassinated. Gaddafi in Libya. African leaders who challenge powerful external interests often meet violent ends.
That brings us right back to the young Jesus thing, the savior complex.
That is the trap. The young Jesus label reflects a hunger for a savior. It casts Traoré as someone prepared to die for his people. But messianic politics is so dangerous. It can inspire courage, yes, but it can also justify extraordinary abuses.
How so?
Because if you are the savior, then anyone who opposes you isn't just a political opponent with a different tax plan. They are an enemy of the people, a traitor.
Right. If you were on a holy mission, you can justify doing unholy things.
Precisely. And the ultimate test for Burkina Faso isn't whether Traoré is a hero or a villain. It is whether the country can eventually outgrow the need for saviors entirely.
That's a powerful thought.
The goal shouldn't be to find the perfect strongman. The goal should be to build a state where justice and dignity depend on institutions, courts, laws, civic bodies that are strong enough to outlast any single charismatic figure.
Because even if Traoré is everything his supporters hope he is still just one man.
And no man lasts forever. If he succeeds in stabilizing the country, broadening prosperity, and restoring constitutional rule, he could be the turning point. But if he fails, or if he falls into the trap of absolute power, he risks joining that long list of reformers whose experiments were cut short, leaving the country to slide right back into instability.
It really is a fascinating, terrifying, and hopeful moment all at once. We will be watching very closely to see if Burkina Faso can break the cycle. That's all for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.